Hello, good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. I am Robert Schoenberger with Industry Week, and welcome to Production Pulse, our bi-weekly discussion of important news in the world of manufacturing. And this week we are talking video. Industry Week this week has launched a new series of documentary-style videos by our senior technology editor, Dennis Semeka. And the first one is looking at a John Deere plant in Waterloo, Iowa that is adopting some new systems. And Dennis will go into that in a little bit of detail in just a moment here. But the real goal for us here at Industry Week is to try to see how many different ways we can present information that will be useful to that manufacturing audience in as many different formats as possible. Obviously, we have more than a century of history in writing magazine-style articles. We've been experimenting with these webcasts, webinars, live streams, lots of different formats. And Dennis came to me a while ago with the idea of what if we did documentary style videos, longer form, really thoughtful pieces. And it took some doing, and we learned a lot in the process. And the first episode is live now. And Dennis, why don't you explain a little bit about what the series is, how you put it together, and talk about that first episode.
Well, we're calling it Smart Manufacturers. Obviously, it's technology focused, technology centric. It's just really an experiment to see what a small team could do. I actually have a background in broadcasting and film. So now, many decades later, I'm actually finally putting it to use. I was just curious what happens if we just bring a camera out to a plant, take a tour, do some interviews with the principals and see what happens. The episode that's out now is the pilot. I could definitely say that we learned a lot from this in the upcoming 2 episodes. You can definitely see the improvement. But really, it's just an experiment to see what happened. I was invited out to Deere's plant, their Waterloo Works plant in Waterloo, Iowa, actually a storied plant, one of their earliest plants. And they wanted to show me about their 5G network. And I thought, let's bring a camera out and see what happens. And I interviewed their chief architect, Jason Wallen. And, it just kind of came together. Like I said, it was an experiment, and we're looking forward to getting everybody's feedback to kind of tell us how you think the experiment's going. But it was a lot of fun. It was interesting. It was different. I've never done anything like it before at Industry Week. So
tell us a little bit about Waterloo. What is going on at that Deere plant? What made it so interesting?
Well, so 5G cellular, it's a technology that I get a lot of press about, a lot of people talking about, but it really hasn't found its place in manufacturing quite yet. I think, Ericsson and Nokia will talk a lot about what 5G can do. But when it comes to kind of 5G manufacturing specifically, generally speaking, if a manufacturer wants to tap into this technology, they're depending upon a vendor like a Bosch Rexroth or a Honeywell or a Siemens. But what Deere did is they actually managed their private 5G cellular network entirely in-house, and that's one of the things we talk about in the episode, was extremely difficult to do because the skill sets they were looking for were almost impossible to find. You needed to have people who had experience in a manufacturing environment, manufacturing OT environment, and had the experience to manage an entire cellular network, much less 5G cellular network. But they developed that expertise in-house. And so it's really a gold standard showing that kind of what manufacturers can do with 5G. Now, John Deere had they had a leg up. They've had 4G technology in their tractors for quite a while now. They have smart farming systems. So they had experience with cellular and with the data transmission, capture, and analysis. They've been working with this technology for a while. So they definitely had a leg up. Right. And in their plants, they could be the Waterloo plant specifically is highly networked. So it gave them a really good kind of test bed for how to use 5G. I think it's also interesting to think about, why is 5G still finding its place in manufacturing? Because not only do you need the expertise, but also you need to have the right pilot plant. You need to have the right test case. So you really have to have a reason to use it. So everything just kind of came together for Deere. Now we have this gold standard for what manufacturing can do with 5G and why you should use it.
Yeah, you mentioned their work with their tractors and the precision farming, something they've really been promoting for decades now, with the highly precise GPS signals and the data to know exactly where you're going to be planting each seed and harvesting each plant, so you can maximize your efficiency on irrigation and everything else that you're doing during the growing process. Fascinating stuff they've been really pushing for quite a while now.
What's great about Deere too is that now they're making headway in autonomy. Just a really technology savvy company overall. It's funny when I was at Vision Systems Design, I wrote about autonomous vehicles quite often, mostly in the context of the vision systems, the AI, and the guidance systems. I always said that if there's one kind of industry in which you're going to see autonomy actually work, it's going to be farming because there aren't people milling around these huge tractors all the time. You don't have to worry about pedestrians. Deere is kind of leading the way on autonomy as well. So it's a very interesting kind of technology savvy company. So this 5G distribution.
Yeah. So for the people can get a sense of what we're seeing here, I'm going to do my best Stephen Colbert impression here, and let's see a clip from that first episode.
In an Ethernet-based system, each one of those network tools or machines might require its own Ethernet cable. Imagine the chaos of trying to reposition a dozen or more of these tools with all the cabling that may need to be disconnected and reconnected. A Wi-Fi system eliminates this particular problem, but still isn't a perfect solution.
But there are some downsides to Wi-Fi as well, meaning that things that move around the shop floor do not transition from access point to access point very seamlessly. We see a big change in latency between devices there, or in instability. We also know that the density that Wi-Fi can support is not as great as what we can support with the Ethernet technologies.
By access point, we mean the physical hardware that accepts Wi-Fi signals from a device and transmits that data elsewhere. If a tool is attached to an access point and then the tool is moved across the plant, the tool might have to be paired to another access point that's physically located closer to the tool than the first access point. So now, instead of worrying about physical cables getting mixed up when connected devices move around the floor, we're talking about wireless signals crisscrossing and potentially falling off the network until it's reconfigured. And the more devices you want to connect to Wi-Fi, the more access points you have to install. Or
Now, for clarity, that was Jason Wallen from Deere who was speaking there. And can you tell us a little bit about Jason, his background there, and what he does at the plant?
First of all, I want to say that I appreciate you picking a clip that shows my professional level hand gesticulations like that. I always try to figure out where the heck my hands go. I mean, I don't know what you want me to tell you about Jason, but he was great to talk to. It was interesting trying to figure out how you break all the technical speak down into kind of language, parlance that kind of a regular audience could get. I followed a lot of that technical speech, but we'd be talking, he'd go into it, and I could, can we break that down? And he would smile and realize what was going on, which kind of exemplifies, I think, the challenge that you talk about 5G networks and Wi-Fi and all of this. These are IT considerations. We can get to the whole IT-OT divide, right? The people who are working in OT on the floor don't necessarily know about internet networks, just all the considerations that go with that, which is why it's so difficult to find somebody who can handle a 5G network, for a manufacturer in-house. So the conversation itself and knowing when we had to back off, break things down from the highly technical was in and of itself informative as to the kind of challenges that manufacturers face if they want to use this technology without depending on vendors. But no, he was great. He was great to talk to. He was fun.
I had that conversation often when I'm talking to engineers that they have a great idea and struggle explaining it to their own management on why this is such a great idea. It's not always just about the technology. So what's next for the video series? We're planning on releasing these every other month or so until we really figure out our processes. Can you tease anything about what we're looking for later this year?
Well, I don't want to give away the manufacturers involved, but we have an episode about homegrown manufacturing execution systems, which I've actually since encountered another company that's done the same thing. So it's kind of becoming a narrative for me. But in that conversation, not everybody can create their own MES, but the considerations by which this manufacturer came to the conclusion to create their own MES, that kind of same thought process tracks what, even if a manufacturer wants to go with an MES that's off the shelf, the sorts of questions you have to ask. And the episode after that is about automation, a really fantastic automation setup that allowed somebody not only to reshore manufacturing from China, also allows all their supply chain to come back to the US, but also some interesting ESG elements as to where they place the plant and why. So those are the two next ones we have coming up.
And we'll continue to work on this series. And over here at Industry Week, we will continue working on new ways to present information that should be helpful to you out there in our manufacturing audience. Thank you all for joining us today. I know this is a relatively short episode of Production Pulse, but just really wanted to explain what we're doing here and offer an invitation to watch these videos and see if they're useful to you. And please let us know, is this useful to you? Do you prefer a text-based format? Do you prefer a something like this, a video? Longer form, shorter form? Let us know. We're very open to adapting over here and look forward to hearing from you and continuing to serve our community as best as possible. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Bye, everybody.